So I ended up taking gesso and going back over these backgrounds and really widening them out. I put in some more marks with my mark making tool. This one, you can see there. And I started to just play around. This is a very tedious process, especially when you're working with a lot of pieces. And I'm just playing, I'm just going back and forth, feeling into the piece, seeing what I like, and just really going slowly. Thinking with my heart what feels good, what feels interesting. So I think I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go ahead and glue these pieces down. I think I'll probably play around a little more with this one, but this is my base, and that's what I'm going to be working off of. So you see there's a little more mark on this side. I'm gonna lightly go in and add that. So what I'm using to stick down my collage pieces is a matte gel medium. This is by Liquitex. Golden also makes a good one. I'm going to use a brayer, a brush for my matte medium, and I like to use a really dry brush. Make sure you don't have any liquid in there. And then I also like to use a spatula. And another little trick that I learned is to blot. So I'm going to take a wet wipe that's kind of dried out, and so I'll show you. So I'm just going to apply the matte medium pretty generously. I'm going to start from the inside and just kind of work my way out. This is a thicker piece that's like stitched together, so I'm going to be very generous with the matte gel. So I noticed that I'm a little off, and that's okay because we're going to trim these a little bit, so don't get totally hung up on your placement center-wise. So with the piece that is a little thicker, I come in with a brayer, just really burnish that out. Make sure you have lots of the matte medium. So I'm not going back over the top of this collage yet with the matte medium because I want to add some aging to the piece. So I don't want to put anything like on top that would resist the coffee dye or tea dye that I'm going to use. So I'm kind of being mindful of like taking off any excess. And I am looking at some of these little pieces that are popping up a little. So when I'm in this process too, that may or may not have been my original little layout. So don't get stuck on that either. You know, when you do your layout and you take it off and you put it back, it might look a little different, and that's okay. So I'm looking here at the black and the black. Your eye is traveling, my eye is traveling around to those. I think I want to put maybe a little tiny bit more black up there. And I think I'm just going to take a very thin piece of this. Yes. And you can see I'm doing both straight edges and torn edges. I like the way that it does, your eye has a place to rest on the straight edges in a collage. And not everything's torn, but you can do either way. Okay, I'll set that one aside. And I love both sides of this. Sometimes you can get these to separate. You have fabulous like sides. Both sides are really cool. This one's not going to cooperate, but sometimes you can pull off the back side too. Or you can take a picture with your phone of that and print it out. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a little copy. So if you have a little extra matte medium, just come in with a folded up paper towel or baby white and go ahead and blot over the top of this. It helps stick it down and it picks up a little bit of leftover adhesive. So I know these were there. I'm doing a little copy of that piece because the back was so pretty. My printer's restarting right now. So I'm just gonna go in and play with this one a little bit more. So once you get your base down, when you go back, you can add more little pieces and elements. But I like to do those like few, it's usually 4 or 5 pieces, main pieces, and then I will go back in and add. So I'm trying to kind of retain this leaf. That's my focal point. So this is another really thick piece, and sometimes you don't want to do that. You can pull apart some of the pieces off the back and make it a little thinner. Especially when you're collaging, you don't want super thick pieces. And then all these little bits can be used also. So remember, this is one of the pieces that I made in my little mending pieces together video, and they come out like this. And then I go back and I just rip them up again to use in my collages. Okay. So I'm going to use my spatula. I am being a little bit mindful of keeping it a little bit of symmetry. This again was a thicker piece, so I'm going to go on the piece and also on here. So these can be a little bit tricky because some of they're kind of thick in places. This is where your brayer and your spatula come in. Let me show you the copy. So because the back of that was really cool, I just made a photocopy, so I can use that in my collage too. Good little trick if there's some pieces that you're just like, oh, I love that. So you might get a little buckling and going back and forth with your brayer and your spatula. And then I'll also go back in when the top's dry and put a book on this so that it will dry flat. So I lost the piece that I was thinking for here. So I'm getting a little bit of separation right there that I don't want. This is where that wet white comes in, so you can pick that up. You're not leaving too much adhesive back. All right, so I feel like I want to put a little something to rest your eye on right here. Something a little plainer. I like that color. That's really neat, so I'm going to do that. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop there. These are my initial collages with my altered paper. And I'll probably come back and play a little around with some smaller pieces. But for now, I'm going to leave this like this. And I want to show you how I would age this here. So I don't like, I mean, the contrast with the white is neat, but I want it to look a little more aged, and I want to pick up some of this marking that I did. So I'm going to try using coffee. Use my espresso powder. I'm going to go over that white area. And I'm not going to go too much too fast. I kind of want to build it up. So I already like that better. It's not as bright and it's subtle, but it's there. So another technique that I learned from Roxanne was she used pan pastels to blend in her pieces. I'm so not prepared right now, but I'm going to use my fingers, or actually a baby wipe. So the same one. Let me see. So I was going to use, probably come in with that. It's just a little bit. And I'm going to start blending this all together. You could also do this with some fluid chalk ink. Tea bag would work. just going to again, I'm putting it on and taking it off. But you can see how it starts to kind of pick up the marks that we made. So I'm noticing over here, there's a really strong mark that I kind of want to see if I can pick up a little better. So I'm going to dab some of that pan pastel in there. Very cool. So I'm going to keep doing that back and forth until I'm satisfied with how it looks. Let's see if I can clean this off a little. Okay. So I think I'm going to come in with a little tiny bit of graphite pencil and just make a few more marks. Just subtly, just small addition. Right here is a perfect place to maybe go a little bit harder there. And then I'm kind of feeling like I want something here, but I'm not sure. So I'm just gonna make some marks with my pencil. Now, if I don't like this or it's doesn't work, I can always come back in and with a wet wipe just kind of get rid of a little bit of it, but you still have the hint of it. I think I'm gonna do that here too a little. So I do like that back. So it's just really a back and forth and a feeling thing. So this mounted on a piece of wood or a canvas would be really cool. Also an old book cover would be really neat for this too. I'm going to do a little more to this one and I'll come back and do some finishing touches.